Good morning, dear church. Does everyone know that you can't yell fire in a crowded room? It's not a law, it's not something that's an actual phrase in a legal phrase, but it's an analogy to say that you can't just yell something in a crowded room that's going to cause panic, chaos, that could cause damage or injury to somebody, because if you do, you might incur a disorderly conduct charge. This actually reminds me of one Sunday morning where I was preaching and someone pulled the fire alarm. And I was telling that the British chased the Israelites to the Red Sea. I don't know how I'm still allowed to preach after that, but I'm curious if you can yell fire when you're being put through the fire. Can you ask for help? Can you call out for help? When you're going through something tough, are you someone who thinks that, or do you think like this, that I'm the only one that's going through this situation? Do you think that there's no one else in the world that's going through the thing that you're going through right now? No one else in your family? No one else in your friends group? Nobody else in your church? Nobody in the world or even throughout time has gone through or is going through what I am going through right now. I am the only person alive or who has ever lived or will live to have struggled or has gone through this thing that I'm going through right now. This pain, this difficulty, this struggle, this circumstance, this situation. Maybe somebody has experienced partially or a little bit of what I am, but not in full, not to the extent that I have. Maybe that's our human nature to want that kind of self-pity on ourselves. Or maybe it's the devil trying to isolate you and tell you lies, that you are the only one struggling with this, going through this, nobody else will understand. People during Peter's time probably thought the same way, because Peter reassured them that this is not the case. In 1 Peter 5:9, he says this: resist him, the devil, firm in your faith, knowing that the same kind of suffering are being experienced by your Christians across the world. Some of the Christians during that time thought that they might be the only ones experiencing persecution or suffering. But Peter reassures them this is not the case. In verse 7, Peter tells us that we must be on alert because the devil is looking for someone to devour, for someone to destroy. And as long as there are Christians in the world, and as long as the devil is set loose on the world, we will go through difficult times and we will go through trials. Moreover, as long as we live in this broken world, as long as our flesh fights against us, we will experience battles, hardships, trials, suffering, and everything else. Now, unfortunately, this is not going to stop in this lifetime. It's not going to stop until we are with Christ. But the fortunate thing is that it is going to stop. And it's going to stop when we are with Christ. Some years ago, I was reading an autobiography by a person who lived in the 1600s. And he was sharing some things. He was writing about what things he was going through and the difficulties he was going through, some of the internal battles he was having, some of the battles and wrestling with faith and the questions that he was having. And as I read through that, I was shocked that the same questions, the same battles, external, internal, are battles that I have had, questions I have had. And the reason I was shocked is because I thought people in the 400 years ago, in the 1600s, did not experience the same questions and things because they weren't exposed to the same nonsense that we might be exposed to today. I thought it was easier to live in certain regards, not in others, but in certain regards, it was easier to live back in the 1600s. It was easier to live in faith. So when I read his autobiography, I was surprised to see that the same struggles, the same questions, internal battles that he was having back then, I was having in the 21st century. And then I got curious and I started reading about people earlier than him in the 1400s, then in the 1800s, then about people today. And I realized that there are Christians across time that are having the same struggles, same battles, same trials, wrestle with the same things. There's a Christian author who says that people need emotional nutrients the same way they need physical nutrients that they get from food and fruit, vegetables, and so on. They need emotional nutrients. One of those emotional nutrients he calls identification, which means that it's the need to know that you're not the only one, the emotional need to know that you're not the only one that's struggling with this one thing, going through this one thing. That means that when you find out that somebody else is going through something similar, your burden, your struggle becomes lighter. You're sharing in that burden with someone else. People don't even have to offer solutions sometimes on how to overcome that. It's just the fact that you know somebody else is going through something like this makes it all the more easier to carry or to fight through. I bet if we looked around today, if we shared with one another, honestly, some of the fears, some of the struggles, some of the situations that we face, some deep personal ones, we'll probably find that at least one or two other people are going through the same thing, if not almost exactly 100% the same thing. And Paul in Galatians 6:2, he calls us to this. He says, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. There are two implications here. First, be willing to share. You have to share in order for someone to help you carry that burden. So be willing to share your burdens with another. I think here at Bethany, we're trying a little too hard to present the best side of ourselves, so that nobody else thinks that we are struggling or we're in the middle of a battle, that we're struggling with some sort of character flaw, or there's a hardship in our life that we're experiencing. There's a phrase for that. It's called fake it till you make it. We try to fake that we're in good standing, put on the strong facade that we're more than okay when we're not. We might have even been told or taught that don't let anyone know that you have a difficult situation right now. Don't even hint on the fact that you might be facing something hard. Well, if you fake it until you make it, then all that you have made is a fraud. And you actually won't make it anywhere. The second implication is be willing to carry someone's burdens. There are some of you who have gone through some difficult times, through some tough situations. Be willing to share. Be willing to share, carry someone else's, mentor them. Be willing to look for someone to help. I want to be honest right now, and not in a form of rebuke, but in a form of encouragement. There's been a trend in our youth for the past 7 to 9 years when certain people hit a certain age, maybe 22, 23 to 25, somewhere in between there. And if they're not involved in ministry, in youth ministry, if they're not as active in it, they tend to disappear or distance themselves. They show up rarely to certain events, to certain youth services. And usually you hear that their reasoning is, I'm too old for the youth. They're too young. Well, my encouragement and my call is that you are older and you've experienced and you've gone through certain things that some of the youth who's just starting off is going through. So find those people, take them under your wing, build them up, encourage them, help them carry their burdens. This principle doesn't apply just to the youth, this applies to the entire church. You who are stronger, carry the burdens of the weak. Seek them out, to encourage them, to help them carry that heaviness that they're carrying, to disciple them, to mentor them in humility and in Christ. Paul says this in Romans 15:1 and 2. He says, we who are strong have an obligation. That means we must. It is our duty. It is not a choice. It's something that we have to do. We have an obligation to bear the failings of the weak and not to please ourselves. Each of us should please his neighbor and to build them up. This is one of the reasons that Jesus established the church, that we may have this kind of fellowship where we share in carrying one another's heaviness. Whether it be spiritual, physical, emotional, mental, whatever it may be. So, dear Christian, look around to ask for help and look around that you may help someone else. My wife is pregnant and she's currently due in any moment, so if you see me look at my watch and run out of this building, that means that she's in labor. But she showed me a video of where men try to relate to women in pregnancy or during their pregnancy. And they try to encourage them or relate somehow. So women will say something like, it's hard to bend over and pick something up. It's hard to find a good side to sleep on. It is difficult to do this. My back hurts constantly, and so on. And then men might encourage them by saying, hang in there, or you got a little left, or it can't be that bad. And probably during that time, the women feel like they want to throw something at the men. Or somebody might jokingly say, stop over-exaggerating. Men can't sympathize with pregnancy, so their response or their advice might be irritating or ridiculous. Have you ever gotten that kind of advice where somebody can't relate to you? They can't understand what you're going through, and they're trying to encourage you or give you advice, and it's not landing with you because what they're saying it sounds ridiculous, almost irritating. It sounds like nonsense. Well, here's something really good that you have to hear. Here's something important that you need to hear today, is that we have a Jesus who can sympathize with us. Hebrews 4:15 says that Jesus can sympathize with us. So that means we can't come to Jesus and say, Jesus, you can't understand the difficult situation that I'm going through right now. Maybe you can come to somebody else. Maybe you come to everybody in this world and say, you cannot understand what I'm going through, because the thing that you're going through, maybe it is that one unique thing that nobody else has gone through in this entire world throughout the entire history. But coming before Jesus, you cannot say that he cannot understand or cannot sympathize with the struggles and the hardships that you're going through. Verse 16, Hebrews 4:16 says, approach the throne of grace with confidence. So he can sympathize with you, and then he calls you to him. He says, approach me with confidence, knowing that there at the throne you will find mercy. You'll receive mercy and find grace to help you in your time of need. He's the one who lifts us. He's the one who carries us. I'm sure all of you have heard the story of the footprints in the sand. Quick recap of that story. It goes like this. Man stands with Jesus. They look at sand. They see two sets of footprints. And they say, this is the time where the man has gone through joyous times or easy times in their life. And then they see one set of footprints. And in the one set, he asked Jesus, where were you? This is a difficult time. And Jesus says, those were my footprints because I carried you. Well, I heard a different version of this story. Man comes to the end of his life, and he stands with Jesus, and he looks at the footprints in the sand, and his entire life, he sees just one set of footprints. And the man looks at Jesus and says, I thought there were supposed to be two sets of footprints. And Jesus says, no. These footprints are mine, because I carried you the entire time. Not just in the good or not just in the bad, but I carried you in the good and the joyous and the happy moments. I also carried you in the bad and the difficult and the sad moments. I carried you the entire time. Because Jesus is our strength. He's the one who carries us. So come humbly and come confidently before the throne of grace and receive that mercy and find that grace and find that help in him. Let him carry you. Jesus said that in this world we will have trouble. As long as there's this broken world, as long as there's the flesh, as long as there's the devil, we will encounter suffering, trials, difficulties, hardships, sufferings, and so on. But then Jesus makes a promise. And Jesus says, "But I will be with you until the end of time." So find someone to help you carry the burdens. Find someone to help carry their burden. And then both be allowed. Allow Jesus to carry you both. Come to him. Find that grace. Receive that mercy. Find help in him because he promised that he will be with you until the end. Let us pray.